Welcome to Nomad Chats, the podcast where we get real and raw with digital nomads who've made the world their home. I'm your host, Sam, and today's guest is someone whose energy you can literally feel through the mic. I'm talking about Janine, the free spirited, opinionated extrovert who moved to Vietnam a few years ago and has been vlogging about her experience. Everything from culture shock to unexpected beauty standards she found herself being hauled to, and of course, what it's really like to show up to a new country and feel like a complete outsider. We'll also talk about the time where it was suggested to her that she should whiten her skin when she was just trying to buy lotion. Get ready for a mix of Vietnamese chaos, personal growth that always comes from traveling the globe, and as always, real talk. This episode's funny, it's honest, and full of moments you will not find on travel blogs. So let's get into it. Janine, welcome to Nomad Chats.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I've been following along your content and watching your videos, and I'm so excited for this one. Where in the world are you joining us from today?
So, I'm actually visiting London right now. It's a really exciting time here. It's London Climate Action Week, and a lot of people don't know that I also work in the climate space as well as blogging and showing my day to day life living in Vietnam.
Well, thank you for that. It is such important work. And it's really great to hear nomad stories who are really trying to give back. I think nomads sometimes get a bad reputation about how we are damaging the climate and the environment. What would you say to that? I'm curious your opinion from what you've learned.
I definitely think that everybody can do a little bit better in their mindfulness about travel and about, how much they consume when they're, out in the world existing. But I also think that unfortunately, travel and migration will be an inevitability in all of our lives at some point if we continue going the path that we are when it comes to climate and when it comes to politics. A lot of people may find themselves moving to other countries. So I think that having a broader understanding of the world is a healthy way to view it.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a tough one, but I figure if I have somebody working in this space, I'd love to hear an answer because I always get that feedback. And I too really try to have a lifestyle where I'm mindful of my carbon footprint and the contributions that I'm making to the planet. So it's good to hear that there are nomads like you doing great work in this space. So thank you.
That's
Vietnam,
so
of course, has been your home for several years. What were some of the first Vietnamese phrases that you had to learn that you could quickly teach me now?
Yeah, so you definitely have to know Xin Chào. Xin Chào is hello. And that's like one of the first things you need to know. And then in any culture that you learn, any country that you go to, you should learn thank you. And thank you is cảm ơn or xin cảm ơn.
Amazing. Were you using any tools to learn the language while you were there? How did you approach it?
Yeah, so I was in a very unique situation where I wasn't like in schooling and I sort of was learning Vietnamese on the go and as I was exposed to it through being in the community and things of that nature. So I definitely relied on YouTube and also just like repetition and not being afraid to just like, I'm going to say this phrase and I might mess it up and they might not understand what I'm saying, but I'm going to say it anyway, especially when I'm out in at a restaurant and ordering food. So I have a lot of food vocabulary.
Yeah, I feel a lot of the times the locals appreciate and respect that you're trying, right? That you're coming and you're willing to learn the language and the culture and give it a try, even if you butcher it. Were there some phrases that you got wrong or had some kind of awkward misunderstanding when you were trying to say something in their language?
Yeah, definitely. More times than I can think. One of my favorite things about Vietnamese culture is that they're a very like big drink culture, but not like alcoholic drinks. They're like
Hmm.
sodas, juices, yogurt drinks. And I loved me a yogurt drink, and I cannot for the life of me say yogurt accurately because yogurt is very similar to the word repair in Vietnamese. So I'd be like, "La chua," and they'd be like, "What?" And I'm like, "Listen, I'm just gonna point to the menu at this point." But I always got what I wanted in the end.
Amazing. Okay, yogurt drinks. Got it. Was there a moment in your early time in Vietnam where you were kind of like, okay, I live here now, and you
Mm.
felt less of a tourist and more of a local?
I definitely just remember arriving in Vietnam and, when you go anywhere new, it's just like it feels like vacation for the first couple of days. You're like, "Oh, I'm just like settling in. People are looking at you. You're just getting around." And then I just remember, walking down the street, I have my laundry on my back and I'm walking to go take it to the laundromat. And, I'm waving at my neighbors that are at the cafe, and people are like, saying hi to me as I walk down the street. I was like, oh, I'm like in community. I'm one of the people. And that was like really such a nice feeling that I'm being recognized as somebody within the community. And I'm also recognizing people within my community. I may not know everyone's name, but we see each other. And that was just a really nice feeling that made it feel like, okay, this is home.
That's beautiful. Yeah, there's something about doing your laundry and just running errands in a place where you're like, I'm here for more than just a good time. This is my
100%.
home now. This is my place. Why Vietnam? You came from the US previously. What drew you to Vietnam? And were you primarily based in one region, or how did you approach where you would be when you landed?
So, Vietnam was actually an opportunity that was not even my opportunity. It actually was my mom's opportunity. So, this is what makes my experience so unique as well, is that my mom was working through a program called English Language Fellows, which is under the United States Department of State. And she worked at a university in central Vietnam. And my mom said, "Hey, Janine, would you like to move to Vietnam and live with me?" And I said, yeah, why not? So I packed up my things and I moved to Vietnam with my mom. And like, this is her first time living abroad. So it was just a new experience for both of us, two Black women living in Southeast Asia. And not to mention, we weren't in a major city. We lived in a small town in central Vietnam called Quy Nhon. And we just had a beautiful time there. And I just couldn't have imagined it was going to be, the experience that it is. So just great times.
That's so
But that's what
beautiful.
brought me to Vietnam in the first place is my mom. So I have her to thank for that.
Yeah. And there's a lot of intensity and really vulnerability in picking up your life and bringing it to a new country where you know nobody. I'm sure that just felt like a little security blanket and a warm hug a lot of the times to know that you had your mom with you. So that's really sweet. I didn't realize that.
For sure. Yeah.
Paint a picture for us about what this town in central Vietnam was like. What are some of the first things you noticed about life there?
Oh, Quy Nhon, Vietnam is a beautiful, beautiful town. It's not a popular town. It doesn't have many foreigners and it's by the sea. You can get seafood, and I don't think I had a meal in Vietnam that I didn't like, but my small town kept me fed and the people were warm and everything is, I don't have anything bad to say. But if you need a faster pace of life, Huy Nhân is a lot calmer. It's a little
Mm.
bit more slow paced. When it rains hard, it floods a little bit. So it's definitely got its charm to it, but beautiful, beautiful town.
Okay, that sounds really nice. The only town that I went to in Vietnam was Hoi An, and I would not describe that as calm and peaceful. It was chaotic, scooters, no sidewalks, just a free for all of all the vehicles and pedestrians and movement and all the shopping and the tailors everywhere, like busy, bustling. This sounds like the complete opposite.
Well, what I can say is that at the end of the day, Huy Nhân is still in Vietnam. So there are still motorbikes and cars and bicycles going up and down the street. But you'll get to a point in your night and you're like, oh, I don't hear any more cars. I don't hear any more motorbikes. They will go to sleep. And it's just that sort of sense of peace that like everybody's asleep now. And then you
That
hear that rooster crow and everyone is awake. It's just the beauty of the motion of the day. And it's a very cohesive feeling there. And just being by the sea, it's just like a nice vibe altogether.
Absolutely. So the town sleeps. It does have some peaceful
They
moments.
will
That's
be
good to
going to
know.
sleep.
Okay, I love that. Travel, as I said in the intro, has a way of forcing us to grow and teaching us things about ourselves that maybe we didn't want to learn, but we're happy in the end that we grew in this way. What are some of the lessons that Vietnam taught you about life and even who you are that you now take forward with you today?
It definitely showed me a lot about myself and what my needs are, as I move forward in my life. Being in Vietnam, because it was such a unique opportunity to be there with my mom. But while I was there, I actually started my content, a series within my content called Day in the Life of a Stay at Home Daughter Living in Vietnam. And that was controversial in its own right, but I truly was being a stay at home daughter. I didn't have a job. I was finished school and I was just living and experiencing life in Vietnam. And I was really able to put my all into my content during those times. And I think what I really realized was like, I do need community and I long for a sense of community. So when I was in Vietnam, I was like, I can't spend all day in the house and wait for my mom to come back home and then have chats with her. I have to go out on my own and go to the cafes and speak with the people and have my own unique experiences because I'm not forced to leave out of the house because of a job or going to school. So I really had to make that effort in order to connect with people outside of just the small people that I knew in my neighborhood. So that's really
Mm.
something I learned.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's like if I have nowhere to go, where do I go? And probably for a
Exactly.
few days, you're like, well, I go nowhere. I'm just chilling.
Exactly.
I'm on vacation. I'm relaxing. And then after a bit, you kind of get a little restless and you're like, okay, this isn't sustainable. I need to have people in my life. I need to be surrounded by energy. Okay. Is there anything in Vietnam that you did or experienced that maybe your past self would be like shocked by or maybe even judge you for?
I have to think about this one. Something that my past self, I feel like I'm so true to myself through and through. I think younger me, past me would be not surprised by the path that I took, but I think I would be really proud of myself. I think probably the most shocking thing would be me moving back in with my mom. Not that there's anything wrong with my mom, love her to death, but that's not usually the trajectory of people in their 20s. You go to school, you move out, you get your own apartment, and then you move back in with your mom. But the funny part is that during the pandemic a lot of people had that experience.
True.
I just had this post pandemic and living in another country. So it definitely probably would have shocked me that I'm like, oh, moving back in with mom.
That's a good answer. It's like, yeah, you returned to the nest, but it was a whole new nest.
Exactly. For both of us.
You mentioned that when you moved to Vietnam, you definitely felt like an outsider, and people actually made you feel like an outsider. Some of your videos, you described that people were staring at you a lot, and you like really felt that sense of being different. Tell us a little bit more about that experience. Like, what were you noticing, and what was your reaction to that at first?
So, one of my very first experiences in Vietnam is I get out of the airport and my mom hired a car to pick me up from the airport and transfer me to her university. I get in the car, and the first thing the driver does is ask, "Can I take a picture of you?" And he takes a picture with me and sends it to his group chat in WhatsApp or whatever app he was using. And I said, okay, awkward, but I let it go. I said, ha ha, he he. Such is life. And that was just like the beginning of some of the things that I was experiencing living in Vietnam. And I think the context is also that this is a smaller town in Vietnam. I'm in a small town where there aren't many foreigners, black, white, or otherwise, in the town. So this was probably a first for many people seeing a black person, a young black person, a dark skinned black person. So there was a lot probably going through their minds, but there was also a lot going through my mind. I'm like, what are you going to do with that picture? What are you saying about me when you send that picture? So there were definitely moments like that, definitely lots of stares. I definitely think about during the holidays, you would see an influx of people that aren't really from the community on the day to day, families coming back to visit their families in their small town. And they're new to me, but I'm like, I live here. So they're staring at me and I'm staring at them. So definitely some funny moments. But what I really loved about Vietnam is that the babies never stared. They were just coming up to me, playing around. And I'm like, that authenticness and, being able to connect with people, even without words, was a beautiful thing. And I think once you break down that barrier, it's like, oh, there's no reason to stare. It's just a girl. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what it ended up being. But I think the initial shock of like a foreigner
Mm-hmm.
in my town is very shocking.
Yeah. And it seems like you have this connection to why he was taking a photo of you in terms of you think it was because the color of your skin. There could have been so many reasons that he was taking that photo. Like you're a beautiful woman, you were young, traveling by yourself. Why did you think it was for that? Like, was there anything else that happened in that interaction that made you feel like it was specifically about the color of your skin?
Well, I was definitely using context clues, but it really does
Okay.
bring me back to my experience when I was 15 and a half. I lived in Thailand.
Mm.
And, a lot of people go to Thailand today and nobody blinks an eye at a foreigner in Bangkok. But the Thailand that I was experiencing in 2011 is so different from the Thailand of 2025. I did not have Google Translate on my phone back then. It was just a completely different world. And, I would be experiencing people on the whole bus ride home, somebody staring at me the entire time. And I think that it evoked the same feeling of like, even if it wasn't because of the color of my skin, maybe it was the texture of my hair, maybe it was what I was wearing, I was being othered in that moment. And it
Yeah.
was pretty obvious that I was being othered. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing to acknowledge the difference amongst us. But yeah, so I think that's sort of what it was.
Okay, so you'd kind of experienced it before in Southeast Asia. You were pulling on some context clues that kind of gave you a reason for why this was happening. But then there's an incident where there's no guesswork needed. It was very clear and blatant. Can you tell us a little bit about your skincare moment when you were just trying to buy lotion in a market? Tell us what happened if they haven't seen the video yet.
Yes. So this is actually one of like within my first 2 weeks of being in country, I was like, I'm going to go out, I'm going to vlog. My mom and I are going to go to the market. So my mom had gone out, had actually moved to Vietnam a few weeks before I arrived. So she was showing me this market that she had been to a week or so prior. And we're walking through the aisles and we're seeing the food and the fruits and the vegetables. And we get to this lady who's sitting at a stall and she has soaps and lotions and deodorants all piled around her. And she stops us and she like calls some of her friends over and we're like, okay, here we go. Time to, see what she wants. Let's talk to her. My mom pulls out the translator and we're talking on the phone and I grab the translator and my mom is saying, oh, I work at the university. We now live in your city. Do you have any questions for us? My mom hands her the phone and she's listening to our response and she's like, okay. And she says something in the phone. And mind you, I'm like vlogging all of this the whole time. And she gives us the phone back and I see that it said, you should whiten your skin. And I said, hello? Like it was
Wow.
just straight to the point. And I was like, I'm a little bit, shocked that she just directly said it. A part of me was shocked, but then a part of me sort of, understands the context of it all, but just like still the fact that it's like, oh my gosh, you just said that to me, said it to my translator.
Hmm.
And, I sort of am confirming it in the translation. I'm like, what do you mean by that? And my rebuttal was sort of that, like, oh, I love my skin. My skin is beautiful to me. And so that's sort of my response to her. And she's like, oh, that's nice, but sort of like a giggle came out of
Hmm.
that. So, did we ever get to a resolution of like her thinking black is beautiful? I don't know. And I don't think that's what the case was. But at the end of the day, I'm like so aware that that was like a speck in my full breadth of experience in Vietnam and Southeast Asia. But I will say it had me gagged for a second there.
No kidding. Yeah, it's the way you speak of it. It seems like you have a sense of like patience and understanding and compassion and acceptance. But I know there's also a side of you who's very like outspoken and has strong ideals and opinions and lives your life with a lot of intention. Is there a part of you that you felt like you had to silence in that moment of just like, I'm not going to get into it today. I'm not going to correct this person? Or in general, is this your tactic when you feel like you're othered in this way? And if so, why?
Well, I think the beauty of the situation is that I never felt endangered. I never felt
Mm.
that even if she didn't prefer my skin color on her, she wasn't going to attack me for it. She didn't necessarily dislike me as a person for it, but she's just like, oh, what would be cuter if you didn't look like that? Ooh, that's crazy to say. But I'm like,
Crazy.
I guess that's your opinion. And I think that because I made sure to let her know, like, no, actually, I love my skin. I love being a Black person. And just showing her that is sort of my like, okay, at the end of the day, you can say what you want, you can have the opinion that you want, but I'm not going to really care about it. But I do understand that I'm a foreigner. I'm a, outsider coming into your community. And it's well within your right to say what you want to say. But I'm also going to, come back and give you my opinion on like, well, I'm not going to tell you what to do with your skin, but I'm going to tell you that I like this skin and it's very cute on me.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I mean, living in Canada, we have such a multicultural country that you see so much diversity in terms of how people look in so many different ways that I would never even consider making a comment like that or even finding it of a noteworthy. I didn't realize that there was that much, I guess, homogeneousness in Vietnam. Did you feel like that the entire time, or did you feel like that started to go away? Because you were there for several years.
Yeah, so I think that it definitely came in waves. There would be moments where I would be able to forget that, like, I look different from everyone else around me. And especially, I think it helped having my mom there. But even in instances where I was out at cafes by myself or going to go grocery shopping by myself, there were definitely moments where I was just like, I'm just going about my day. But there would also be moments where I'm being pointed at or somebody's pulling out their phone to take a picture. So, it just sort of snaps you back to the reality of the situation. But I also was just like so aware that these are fleeting moments and that, this may give me a negative experience and this may not be the best experience, but this was not my entire experience. And I was shown so much kindness and so much welcome from the people that were my neighbors and that were at the coffee shop on the corner and down the street and the people whose restaurants I ate at. They always welcomed me with open arms. They never pulled out their phones. They never pointed. They never laughed. And I
Mhm.
think that's the beauty of the situation is that like things like this can happen in your own backyard. You can look different in certain communities in the US or even in Canada,
Mhm.
but they may not say anything, but they may look at you. They may
Mhm.
even take a picture. But I think that I had a different set of rules from when I'm an outsider in someone else's space.
Okay, you've mentioned that you were documenting this experience, and in general, your vlogging career kind of started or really took off during your time there. How did filming your experience help you process everything that was happening you were experiencing? What role did it play in your travel and just like what you took away from this time in Vietnam?
That's a really great question. I think that what's unique about me and my vlogging style is I did like day to day what's happening. So, like, you're seeing in real time in chronological order what I'm up to, what I'm eating, what I'm wearing, what I'm experiencing, what I'm hearing. And I think Vietnam and living in Vietnam is such a sensory experience. You wake up to the roosters crowing. You feel the heat and the humidity on your skin. You're hearing the karaoke, you're tasting the amazing food. So I think that I couldn't just tell somebody about my experience in Vietnam. It's like I kind of have to show you so you can have the visual, the
Mm,
audio, and if you can't be there and touch it yourself. So I think that was like the best way I can convey the experience that I was having in Vietnam is just like, welcome back to a day in the life of a stay at home daughter, and then show you my day. So I think that's really what worked for me. And I think also I use my content as a sort of journal because it's so fun to
mm.
like look back to last month, last year and be like, oh my God, that was like such an amazing cafe I went to. The food was so good at this restaurant. I loved that outfit that I wore. I love the way I did my hair there. So I think looking back, at the memories and also just like seeing the change throughout the years is really awesome to see. And documenting that is just a cool way to harness those memories.
Absolutely. Having some type of travel journaling practice where you're capturing is so helpful because as nomads, we're just, collecting passport stamps, going borderless. It's the next country, the next experience. And before you know it, you're forgetting about something that was so amazing and so meaningful. So, having an entertaining way to look back and consume your experiences over and over again, I think is so special. I have been podcasting for years and I recently added a video element and it totally changed even my own journey with reliving my experiences because I never found myself going back and listening to old podcasts, but I definitely really enjoy watching my old videos. So
Absolutely.
I can imagine that's going to be so grateful. You're going to be so grateful that you did that in the future.
Yes, for sure. And I think, being able to show like my grandmother my videos and knowing that
Mm,
I have family from all over the world that's able to go on YouTube and watch a video of mine and, be there along that experience with me is just like so heartwarming. And like when I see a comment from someone I know, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're watching my video. It's very cool.
So true. Getting the grandmas watching our content is priceless. Okay, you mentioned that some of your content, though, was a bit controversial. What did your audience say about your stay at home daughter content that surprised you, or where were you getting this feedback that it was controversial?
Listen, I had haters and I didn't even know I was going to have haters. Like I'm posting my content. I'm thinking, oh, I'm just living my life. The comments were very upset. Number one, that I wasn't working. So they're like, oh, you're a leech on society. You're not doing anything. You're not a productive member. Everything under that umbrella is sort of
Yep.
like some of the comments that I were getting. Of course, I was also getting some beautiful comments of people saying that, like, I wish that could be me. I wish I could travel with my daughter. I wish my daughter could be a stay at home daughter. And I was like, yeah, I mean, it is pretty cool. And, I also have to take into account that not everybody knows the full information about my life. Not everybody has the full context of my story about why I'm in Vietnam, why I'm not working a job, what my history is. So I have to be mindful that people are just entering from that first video that they see. Or if a
Hmm.
video goes viral, this is what their entry point is.
Yep.
And I try and give people as much context as possible in a video, but 1 minute and 30 seconds is not always enough to give you the full breadth of what is going on. And that's okay. Because if you like my content, you can scroll and you can see everything from point A to point B. But I think also we have to understand that not everything is about working a job. Not everything is about being productive and producing all the time. I think that if anybody was given the opportunity to live in Vietnam and they didn't have to pay bills, they would jump at that opportunity. And I am no different. So I think that we're being a little hypercritical when you see somebody on the internet and they're like, oh, you're using mommy and daddy's money and you're just spoiled. And I'm like, I mean, if this is the worst thing you can say about me, then so be it.
Hmm.
But I think it's the internet, and that's where nuance just loses its power. And you just have to let people think what they think and know yourself at the end of the day.
Hmm. And where were you receiving this feedback? Was it in the comments on YouTube or Instagram stories, or how are you getting this reaction from people?
Definitely in the Instagram comment section, people were not shy to let me know what they thought
Okay.
about me. Um, a viral video is a blessing and a curse. A blessing because it can open the doors to so many opportunities and get your content out to really cool people. And even the fact that I'm on this podcast right now is a testament to me posting my content and getting it out there. But I
Hmm.
think also it's a double edged sword. You get people that, you get trolls, you get haters, you get people that are just like upset that you're living your life. And you think that I'm doing no harm by just showing my day to day. But, somebody can always find a problem with something. So that's what it is. But those comments, they lit my comments up sometimes.
Yeah, there's something about the ability to just be so anonymous where it just really gives people the freedom to have no filter. I
Exactly.
hate that Facebook now actually has it. I'm not sure if you've seen that, but you can leave comments now and truly change your name to anonymous. So then nobody knows who you
Oh,
are. You are just like literally trolling. I
okay.
think that's a terrible product feature and not the direction we need. No, we don't need more anonymous voices up there. So thanks for being honest about the pros and cons of content creation, because we have so many nomads who listen to this podcast who are content creators like you, and going viral is the goal, right? It's exciting. Like you just said, you just never know when your next video could be the video that opens a door for you that you didn't even know existed, or like opens the opportunity that you've been wanting forever. But with that can come scrutiny and more people that see you, more
Absolutely.
people behind their phones and typing. So I'm sorry that happened to you, but you're right. You also had like a moment of privilege and you took it, and you're being unapologetic about that. And you had a great time in Vietnam.
100%.
One thing that I noticed in some of your videos about life in Vietnam was tropical storms. You have a video that you put out where you were like getting your flashlights and your power banks and all your battery packs ready. For someone who has never experienced one of these tropical storms, like how serious did it get? Did you ever feel like you were in danger? Or like, what is that like?
So My mom came home from work and she's like, "Oh, I don't have school tomorrow. They sent me home early because there's a tropical storm coming." Immediately, I go to the
Mhm.
internet. I'm like, "What tropical storm is it? I need to know what time it's coming." Like, I'm not playing around because I know what, is happening with the world, with climate, and you don't want to mess around and you don't want to be unprepared. So, my mom and I are running out to get food. I'm getting batteries for the flashlight. Like you said, I'm like getting everything together because we don't know how many days we might, if the power goes out, what we'll need. We'll need water and just need to be able to take care of ourselves for the next couple of days, depending on how this storm affects us. When I say my mom and I are rushing out and getting everything and we're huddling down inside, and I hear my neighbors doing karaoke in their yard. I said, "Wait a minute. What's going on?" The once we stepped outside and realized that the neighborhood were still out at the cafes, and even more people were out at the cafes because they got sent home from work early as well. The people, I was reading the vibes of the community and they were not worried, not one bit. Now, I did stay inside a little bit more than I probably would. At most, the tropical storm thankfully ended up just being very high winds and some rain as well. Other parts of the country might have been affected more, but I think the people really know what's going on and they know how to react accordingly. So I think really reading the signs of the people who are local and indigenous to these regions was a really good thing that we could have paid more attention to on the front end. But I think it's never a bad thing to be prepared.
Mhm. Fair enough. That's funny, just like the casualness of it all that your
Exactly. I'm just
neighbors
like, "Oh,
were.
they're out and about."
Yeah, I have luckily never been involved in a natural disaster or like some kind of crazy weather pattern while I was traveling. But the idea of a tsunami hitting in one of the towns I'm at is like one of my worst fears. I need to stop watching the tsunami videos because those are so terrifying.
No,
So,
immediately, I'm like, I don't think even if I was nowhere near it, the thought of it alone sends chills down my spine.
okay, I got a couple more questions about Vietnam and then we're going to close off with a speed round. So, this is a
Ooh.
tough one to maybe answer because I know Vietnam is a big place. So, take it however you want. But who do you think would thrive in Vietnam? And maybe what type of person do you think would struggle? Like, is Vietnam for everyone? Is the heart of this question.
I actually created a video that said that was basically talking about the things in Vietnam that would drive an American like crazy, like send them spiraling, basically.
Hilarious.
And I just was thinking from an American perspective of like these things that we just aren't used to in our culture. But then I think on the other side, somebody who would love Vietnam is somebody who, number one, likes a little thrill, likes to live life on the edge just a little bit. When I say drivers in Vietnam, whether it's a motorcycle, whether it's a car driver, they definitely live life on the edge. You're not always driving in your lane, you're not always driving on your side of the road. So there's definitely an aspect of danger and adventure. And there's no guarantee that there's going to be a seatbelt in that car. Keep that in mind. Definitely someone who loves trying new foods. Vietnam definitely expanded my horizons in the food category, and I pretty much eat everything. I believe it's called nem chua, which is like a fermented pork meatball of sorts. It gave me pause when I first saw it. I'm not gonna lie. And I'm pretty
Okay.
adventurous with food, but I tried
Yeah.
it and I understand why people like it. It has a very nice taste to it, but it has a sour taste to it as well. So
Okay.
I think
Okay.
somebody who's adventurous with their food, but also like I said before, I haven't had a bad meal in Vietnam.
Mm.
Their flavor profiles are just like top 10, top tier.
Hmm. Okay.
And
Noted.
somebody who really has an appreciation for nature would love Vietnam. It
Mm.
is a beautiful country. In the north of the country, the hillsides are just like I've never seen anything like it before. The oceans are beautiful. The sea is just amazing and they have such beautiful natural resources. The rice paddies that you see along the country. Now, you may be driving in a reckless car driver while you're driving past those paddies, but it's beautiful. I just always have these images of like being on a train. I love the trains in Vietnam. It may not be someone's favorite, but
Mm.
I love being on the train and you look out the window and you can see these cemeteries, and they're beautiful and they're colorful. And I'd never seen cemeteries like this before. And I think Vietnam is just so special that there's always these like gems of beauty everywhere around the country, even in the middle of a field of grass. So just somebody who loves the beauty of nature, some good food. And if you like the heat, you'll love Vietnam.
Okay. Very humid, right?
Very humid.
Okay, amazing. Last question. If Vietnam was no longer home, where would you go next?
Ooh, Vietnam was no longer home. Where would I go? I very much feel like the world is my oyster, but I'm going to give a two-prong answer. If I were to be in Southeast Asia, I think Thailand is definitely my second home in life in general. I can always find myself going back to Thailand. I think just like my experiences when I was young living there always just call me back. The people, the food, the culture, the language, I love it. But then there's also something that calls me back home to the US because at the end of the day, that was my home. I grew up. That's where my friends and my family are. And I think there's nothing like having an American experience. And it may not be perfect, but I think that at its core, the people of America want better. And I love that for us. And I hope we get better. And there's always something that's like, that's going to be home and it always will be home.
Hmm, I hope so too. And
Yeah.
these are great answers. Thank you. Okay, we're going to close off with a rapid fire round.
Okay.
So, no wrong answer here, just this or that. First thing that comes to mind. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, odor bikes. Fun or terrifying?
Terrifying.
Dry season or rainy season?
Ooh, dry season.
The most unhinged street food you actually tried?
It has to be that sour fermented meatball, that nem chua, hands down. Did I go back for more? I did take a second bite, did not take a third.
Banh mi or pho?
Ooh, I love a banh mi. I love a banh mi.
Okay, best $1 snack in Vietnam?
It's not a snack, it's a drink. Get the sugarcane juice. Get that sugarcane juice.
Fish sauce, yes or absolutely not?
Absolutely, yes.
Night markets, love them or overwhelming?
No, I love them.
Okay, last one. The most random item you now carry around because you live in Vietnam.
I think my use of, I don't even know what they're made of, but like that croc, I have so many of those shoes because I'm like, that's the shoe to wear. I'm pretty sure the shoe is giving me contact dermatitis, but I can't let it go. I'm like, Vietnam, you've changed me. I was not a croc girly before living in Vietnam, but I'm like, you have no choice. So that's probably the thing that I have with me all the time is a pair of some rubber shoes.
Too easy. Have you seen the Croc platforms
I
that
have, and I
have a
love
strap?
it.
Okay, that is my go-to. I have those in three different colors whenever I have to travel, especially for a work event where I have to look a little profesh. I bring those, and people are shocked when I tell them that they are Crocs. They have really
Exactly.
innovated with that brand.
Yeah, and I'm like, a chunky shoe is just really so chef's kiss.
Janine, you are amazing. Thank you so much for being raw and real and unfiltered. We will include links to those videos that we mentioned today because you did such a great job with them. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a treat meeting you and talking to you and having these conversations.
Yes, thank you. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in to another episode of Nomad Chats. We hope today's story inspired you to take that next adventure or just helped you navigate the nomadic life a little easier. Remember, wherever the road takes you, we've got your back. With Safe Doing Nomad Insurance, you will be supported to chase your dreams no matter where you are in the world. So catch us for our next episode for more tips, more laughs, more stories from the road. And until then, keep exploring and don't forget, you're part of our global nomad community.